Hello, um, welcome everyone. First of all, thank you very much for letting us present in this webinar, in this geoscience webinar. The topic of today is Antarctic groundwater. My name is Rogier Westerhoff. I will be presenting this recording, but in the session, both myself as well as Jill McCuckey will be present to answer any questions and to have some discussions. We're presenting on behalf of all the chairs of the Action Group Groundwater within SCAR, which are myself, Jill, Sarah Seabrook, and Bernd Kulessa. If all is well, I've now removed the little video of myself because I don't want to be blocking any images or figures. I'll first be starting with a bit of an outline of the presentation of today. I think it would be rather short, under the 30 minutes, but that leaves more room for discussion. So I think that's altogether nice. A bit of summary of how did we get here, and the overall topic and introduction of groundwater are welcomed by some of us. Then a bit more into detail about a few topics that we want to touch upon. I could have made this a lot longer, but I think these are the topics that I think would be interesting to discuss with you. First, a bit of an introduction on how the Groundwater Action Group AG was formed and what its aims are. Then piece of information on how we collected evidence and what we are planning to do with that within the action group. Also, we gathered some more data in a recent digital survey, which I think would be nice to explain how we went about and what the results of those were, more or less. And then I'll end with some concluding remarks. First of all, what is groundwater? For some people unnecessary, for other people just a good little introduction of the topic. We define in an Antarctic environment groundwater as the liquid water sub terra firma, so the liquid water under the ice in the subsurface. As you can see from this simplified water cycle diagram drawn in an Antarctic environment, it's often out of sight, out of mind. You can't see it, but it does connect quite a few processes with each other. So it might actually be worth investigating more of a groundwater-centric approach to some research topics. When we started the formation and the work previous to the formation of the Groundwater Action Group, we did just quite a simple Google Scholar search with some relatively simple keywords as hydrogeology, Antarctic, and groundwater, etc., etc. I can give you those exact terms if you want. And we noticed that the awareness of hydrogeology and groundwater in Antarctic research is relatively low. It's not that it doesn't exist, but it's relatively low. That's not surprising. There's a severe lack of underpinning data, and that goes for many research topics in the Antarctic. Many concepts are still hypothetical. Well, there's this whole list that I won't go into literally, but or word by word. But of course, as you see from this diagram of publications by year, you can see there's a relatively limited mention in journal papers. Overall, this graph goes up to 6 counts a year max. So you can also see that that number is slightly growing, but still it's a relatively small number. And also, strategic documents do not mention that certain problems might be tackled from a more groundwater centric lens. What we did find also in the first few years in the previous investigations is that groundwater is important and across disciplines. So it plays a role in not one but many Antarctic climate, environmental and biological processes. For example, such as ice sheet dynamics. So it contributes to ice sheet dynamics by a potential lubrication of the base of ice sheets, so like a slipperiness change if groundwater is mixed to the equation. Water is life, even in an extreme environment of Antarctica. So ecosystem function, the effect on the biology of Antarctica, is a rather important topic where groundwater plays a role. It plays a role in the release of greenhouse gases to the climate. And of course, groundwater can contribute direct to sea level rise, but we don't exactly know what the potential volumes are. There's an underlying pillar of system understanding of hydrogeology and numerical models that is, of course, often used to understand all of those four or one of the four. So I've mentioned that word groundwater centric a few times already. But if we approach things from the groundwater lens, then that might actually bring benefit. And that was also the whole reason why we started investigating on whether it's worth setting up an action group within SCAR. So can we find alternative, better, or more robust explanations on existing research questions if we use a groundwater-centric lens? If we want to do that, it's not an easy feat because you have to talk to multiple people within multiple disciplines, so it requires a coordinated effort, and ideally with a large scientific community that spans those multiple disciplines of research. Hence, the action group was formed in 2024 officially at the OSC in Pucon. We had to defend our plan, and that was approved, and the action group was formed not too long after. The goals of our action group are manifold, but summarized, they are to promote groundwater-centric approaches across disciplines. And that also means that our action group does not belong to one science group, but it covers all three SCAR science groups: physical sciences, geosciences, life sciences. And our aim is to promote Antarctic compilation of hydrogeological data, linkage between hydrogeological models across disciplines used, so for example, models for ice sheet or models to explain carbon release or what have you. Modeling groundwater, its formation, its recharge, its fluxes, its discharge, and interactions with ice, the ocean, or life within the subsurface or in the ocean. And we also promote direct sampling of groundwater, either terrestrial or submarine. And as we said, it's really about bringing that international community together to just talk about the topic and see, okay, what's the problem? Would a groundwater-centric lens help or not? So these are a few buzzwords within the proposal itself. So improved understanding, of course, recommendations for targeted research. So a few examples that we've already done at this stage is just to help people combine or write up their thoughts for research proposals, for research funding, facilitate exchanges between early career or other scientists. However, our main aim is to produce this, as we call it in the proposal, State of the Environment white paper with regards to groundwater. I think we've talked about this with our steering group and amongst ourselves and with the action group members, and I think we are ready to call this a horizon scan paper, which is due to come out somewhere next year, hopefully, that really describes this process of the formation of the group, but also goes into a bit more detail about the review and the evidence collection and the stuff that I'm presenting here today. This information will also be on the last slide. So, yes, we are organized within the life sciences group, but as I said, that just was because we needed a place on a website. But we cover all three science groups. You can join the Groundwater Action Group if you go to this address, or just follow the QR code here and look for this button, Join the Groundwater Action Group. You will be brought to a mailing list where you can subscribe. Okay, so far, so this is the information about the action group and the topic. Now into a bit more detail on, okay, how do we collect our evidence, and what type of evidence is it? So a bit of explanation on what we are looking at within that sparse data environment. And most importantly, where do we desire more data? So I've got a few slides to explain ourselves. Very simple thing. This is just a few screenshots from a Word document that we worked on from 2023 onwards, really collecting evidence of literature that mentions the importance of groundwater, or that mentions evidence of groundwater in Antarctica. And you don't have to look into too much detail here. These are also available if you're part of the Groundwater Action Group. In fact, you are asked to add to this table. This is the vital information that, of course, we want to display and disseminate it in a slightly more enthusiastic way, or in a slightly more visually appealing way. So a few thoughts we had about that was, so we already mentioned these more or less research themes that we can group groundwater and Antarctic groundwater research into, the different disciplines. If you look at these research themes that I showed earlier, and you count the current literature list and group where people found evidence, or where people say this is important to what discipline, then you get these numbers, and you can see that most of the attention at the moment really sits at that ice sheet dynamics, at that slipperiness of the surface, and the potential of groundwater to accelerate ice melt. And secondly, that ecosystem function, since changes in groundwater might dramatically affect changes to life, either in the subsurface or in the sea. And that could either be for the better, or it could be for the worse, depending on the quality of that groundwater. Could, for example, be hypersaline and have detrimental effects. Carbon and methane cycling, really about finding processes that remind us a bit about what's happening in the Arctic now, but carbon and methane does escape from melting permafrost, and there might even be a trace to the deeper groundwater there, or there might even be evidence that would be coming from the deeper groundwater. So it's a rather important topic to understand, and it might be explained from that groundwater perspective. And then the global water budget, if you look at the continent and you look at what part of the continent sits above the geosphere, and how much water there is potentially available to add to sea level rise if that all would melt, then you get to significant volumes that could add to sea level rise. Many papers that we looked at, of course, try to understand, explain, model, estimate with a geological understanding or numerical models. We were talking about how to best compile data for our action group. And after talking to the steering group and discussing between ourselves, we thought, hey, it might actually be nice to call this thing a treasure map. Why don't we try and collect evidence in a form of treasure map approach and see if we can make treasure maps of what has been found, or see if we can make maps of where do we want to go, or whatever other lens you could make this map into. So relatively straightforward idea. Now we just have to do it, and we found a kind of brilliant summer intern student. Her name is Jeanne Lefloc, and I asked her to compile the evidence that we have now and make that first treasure map and have a bit of a think about how you can distinguish between how hard is this evidence? Is it direct evidence? Is it geophysical evidence? Is it a drilling? Is it a theory, etc.? She only had a month, but she actually did a brilliant job, and out came her first version of a treasure map. Jean's treasure map version 0.1 is what I call it. She built it in QGIS. I call it a version 0.1 because she wasn't really into the terms and jargon of the disciplines. So despite that there's a whole lot of information in here already, which is super interesting to look at, this map needs more work. Hence what I did, I took this map and presented it, for example, in Punta Arenas at ICES, and asked for more interaction, because I think this would also be a really good way to get actively going within the action group. For example, to set in motion a GIS working group, which is exactly what we have done. So we now have a little subgroup called GIS Working Group, led by Ian Kelly from the University of Tasmania, and quite a few others. So I think total of the group is 8 or 9 people who are tasked with more or less improving this map, and for example, put different attributes to each of these evidence types. What domain is it? What discipline is it? Is it direct evidence? Is it soft evidence versus hard evidence, i.e. geophysical data or a drilling? Type of measurement, is it shallow? Is it medium deep? Is it deep? And you can think of a lot more stuff to this map, right? So the overall aim of this GIS group is that the map itself will be an input for our journal publication, our Horizon Scan paper that we are currently working on as a group, but also for more consistency and data standardization, because we want this map to be used as a framework to collect more evidence into and to be updated throughout the lifetime of the group and possibly later as well. We also want to use it to bring the community together as a discussion point of, hey, this is what we have, to see whether we have missed some studies, some research, and also to look at where new investigations need to take place. So to define an international target or international targets, for example. Okay, that was very short about that topic. Digital survey. What we also did was gather more information, not only from literature, but also from the experts within the action group. Before the action group was formed, we already had an online session, which with quite a few people, so almost 50 people already, whereas the current size of the action group, or if you look at the mailing list at least, is 100 people. But already in 2023, we had discussions with many of those who were part of that, who are now part of that action group. And we just did whiteboarding sessions online. So on this slightly more elaborate water cycle diagram, we explained the topic, and people could put sticky notes, and we gathered that information, we looked at it in detail, and then compiled it into these research themes that you have seen now a few times. So like the ice sheet dynamics, ecosystem function, carbon and methane, and global water cycle one. On top of that, after the action group was formed, we also had substantially more people as part of the group, and we wanted to just obtain some more information. So we put out a digital survey. So I could explain in a lot more detail, but I'll try and keep it a bit shorter. But feel free to ask me for more details, or just wait until the paper comes out. Of course, the journal publication comes out. A quick sip of coffee. It's morning here in New Zealand. Survey ran from July to September. Among at least all Groundwater Action Group members, although they were also invited to share with others if needed. In total, 4 questions. In fact, there were 5, but quite similar ones. Main research: what is your main research interest? Why do you want to gain more knowledge on groundwater in Antarctica? Where would you drill, and for what reason? And be as specific as possible where. Where would you want a geophysical investigation? Why? Be specific. And the 5th one was also, where would you want samples, in situ samples? In total, we got 22 responses. It's not a bad number. It's not statistically significant, but it gave us a lot of information. New names of possible future locations, some more information on where research has been done, things that we missed. What we could also do with it was to see if our first compilation of research themes and priorities was correct. And indeed, if you follow that survey of this year, it, although not statistically significant, it more or less led to that same prioritization of ice sheet dynamics first, followed by ecosystem function, followed by carbon and methane, followed by global water budget, etc. I found reading over these results quite interesting because it also revealed very specific locations of desired future locations or investigation locations. Okay, I'll swap to or switch to concluding remarks now. As you will have noticed throughout this talk, we are really in it to bring the community together. We're not solving a new problem, we're just looking at it from a different lens. We also want to be as inclusive as possible, and if you want to bring the community together, it has to be carried by the whole of that community. And we discussed a few possible options of how to get to that point. Well, first of all, just quite practical solutions to that. So, for example, that literature list that we initially built, it should be improved, it should be checked, and literature should be added. So, a whole of action group request was for people to contribute and also put their name towards it so that we can see who actively has contributed to that literature list. Formation of the GIS group was a big one, and that aims for the journal publication, future-proof framework, and collating desired future research targets. We're currently aiming with the whole of group for an Antarctic groundwater session at the OSC Oslo, and a provisional yay because we are being listened at, and we are being asked to provide information for sessions and such. So I hope that's going in the right direction. And thanks to the SCAR office, we'll also soon have a dedicated Slack workspace, which just makes collaboration a whole lot more efficient, saving us heaps of emails and newsletters as well. So as said, I'll also end here with that information about the Groundwater Action Group. You're more than welcome to join. We are currently 100 people, but yeah, we can just take it as far as we want. Contact either of us, so myself, Jill, Sarah, Bernd. Our steering committee is shown here as well, and I said that QR code that's also on that last slide here. And I'll leave it at that, and then I'll close the presentation, and we'll go into discussion next.